Hello, Women Who Lead and Sell. We have got a brilliant episode for you. Today we had a conversation with Kirsty Davis-Chinnock. I'm going to call her Kick-Ass Kirsty from now on. She talked about how in her career she's had very old school, old-fashioned leadership and management tactics, and she's had to shrug them off so that she could lead like a pioneering new ways. And for our female founders, that is going to be invaluable because so many of you deal with the issues of that old school versus the new school tactics. She's very progressive for youngsters, and also she's got some brilliant ideas around how you can really feel the fear and do it anyway, and we'll keep you listening right till the end for those ones.
Share this with 3 female founders if you like what you hear, and like and subscribe, and also reach out to us. We'd really love to hear. Hi Kirsty, thank you for joining us from, it looks like, your manufacturing facility, is that right?
Yes, there's a very large 40,000 square foot factory behind me. So
yeah. And your
it's very warm.
Yes, everybody's saying that to us at the moment. And yeah, it's been 33. We're in Peterborough, and it was 33 outside yesterday, but we're in a nice air-conditioned studio, so I feel your pain. You're the managing director of the company, aren't you, Kirsty? And what really caught my eye about you is your mission of Women in Metal. How did that happen? I mean, at what point did you kind of go, we need something, I'm going to call it Women in Metal?
So I had a big birthday a few years ago, and it had a 0 on the end. I was at a meeting somewhere, and like a lot of women who work in the industrial sector, there are a lot more of us than there were 35 years ago, but that we're still only a handful in the room. And this guy said to me, "Oh, you don't see very many women in manufacturing." And I was like, "Well, I know loads." So at that point, I started the Women in Industry podcast, and that started going quite well. And then I had a phone call of somebody I've known for donkey's years, and he's in recruitment in the metal sector. And he said, a lot of companies are now telling me that whatever role we're submitting candidates for, it needs to be 50% men and 50% women. He said, and I've been thinking about it. He said, you've got golf days, you've got football matches, you've got clay pigeon shooting. He said, Kirst, you're the face of the industry. I will hasten to add, I have a very good photographer. He said, you're the face of the industry. Can you do something for the women? Can you host an afternoon tea? And I really took it in the spirit of which he meant it. And 48 hours later, I booked Park Regis Hotel in Birmingham, strong arm 5 of my network to be speakers, and Women with Metal, the conference was born. And it's Women with Metal, a play on the word metal. So, you know, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. And yeah, it's just gone from strength to strength, really. Men are very, very welcome. We have men attend each of our conferences so far because it's about equity. It's about working together. And what's good for women in the workplace is good for men in the workplace.
Yeah.
Ooh, mic drop.
Mic drop. That was a mic drop.
Yeah.
How did you become the face of Women in Metal?
I actually recorded a podcast a couple of years ago, and they said something about you know, you're speaking here, you're speaking there, you know, you're on the news a lot. I do Wake Up to Money with Radio 5 every quarter. I do this, I do that. And he said, are you a natural show-off? And I went, yes, I think I am a natural show-off. And I thought about it a bit more. And I think like a lot of women who were, you know, brought up in the 70s in sort of quite a middle-class, white, normal 2.2 suburban family, you were sort of moulded into it. You know, you went and sang in the church choir, you went to dancing school, you did this, you did that. And then you got to be a teenager and were told to shut up. So it was quite weird when you sort of look back. So you were almost sort of meant to perform in the children should be seen and not heard unless we want to pop them on the stage. And I think it's that sort of played into it. But yeah, I think I got trotted out a lot once producers found me, because it was like, oh, we can have a manufacturer on and it's a girl.
Yay.
So, I just sort of got trotted out a lot, and I got more publicity. I was not backward in coming forwards in the industry I'm in. So I know a lot of people. And the benefit of being the only woman in the room is that everybody knew me. I'd be talking to, middle-aged white man in a grey suit called Dave, and there'd be another 20 of them in the room called Dave.
With the close-cut haircut.
And they're all nice guys and they're great at what they do. But I'd literally be talking to them going, and what's the name on your badge? I know it's Dave, which company are you at? And everybody knew me. So there was definitely a bonus there. And then with social media and LinkedIn and how the internet, massively evolved, and how you can use your personal branding. What have I got to lose? So I sort of went on a bit of personal branding journey, which worked.
You say I was a personal brand, really, before it became a thing. So it sounds like it was accidental.
I had LinkedIn before LinkedIn existed. It was just a folder and a Rolodex, and people would ring me up and go, oh, I know you polish stainless steel. I need to bend some. This is the size. Where can I get it done? And I'd go, oh, you want to talk to my mate Simon at the Angle Ring Bending Company, or talk to these people at Barnshaws. And I'd sort of created a network through going to exhibitions, going to conferences, getting every bit of literature I could, because everybody had piles of brochures, reading about it. And then people would ring me up and go, I'm building this sugar silo. What material should it be made out of? What finish should it have? What type of weld should it have? And I just sort of would tell them. It was great. I miss that, actually. It's quicker to Google it, but you're not putting the amount of research in it.
Do you get how unusual that is, though? I mean, what compelled you to do that, to create this network so that you could be this information hub stroke sphere of influence? That's not usual. What compelled you to do that?
I like being right. So when people ask me a question, I want to have the information.
That's me.
I'm naturally really good at absorbing information. I'm one of those annoying people that, can read a page at a time. The team here will come in and go, a customer's just rang, said you'll know all about it. They think it was about 2003. And you can almost hear the wheels clicking in my head. I can hear them and I'll go, yep, I remember that. It was a bloke called John and he worked in so-and-so. And I'm just lucky enough to be able to access information, I've absorbed in the past. It's just the way my brain works, which is no better or worse than anybody else's. It's just I know how it works and I can take advantage of it.
I think it's really fascinating. With a lot of our guests, there's like a seminal moment where they go, oh, I did this, or I had my first business, or I had my first experience of this. I get this sense of you that, what was 12-year-old, 13-year-old Kirsty like?
So when I was very little, I wanted to be a ballet dancer. And I danced all the time, hours a week. And then I think I was about 12 or 13 and my teacher emigrated to Australia. So being that sort of young teenager, I immediately decided I would never dance again. And gave it up because, I didn't know how to process the emotions. I just didn't know how to. And then I grew. I was very tiny. I was about 4'7", 4'8". And I'm about 5'4" now. And I grew literally in about 6 months. And I had major issues with my knee muscles not growing. And I had therapy for a few years. And that really put the kibosh on having a dancing career. So I was quite academic when it came to history, English, research, things like that. Never on the maths side or the science side. I was always sort of literature based. So I thought it'd be a good idea to become a lawyer. So I was studying to go to Cambridge. That was my plan. I was going to get my A-levels, go to Cambridge and do law. And then I came to PPS, professional polishing, for 6 weeks in between college courses. And that was 36 years ago. Aliya, it's been a very long 36 years or 6 weeks. You know, it's just like, yeah, I never got there. I did do all my degrees and I got partway through my PhD a few years ago before the world ended in one of the many recessions. But yeah, even then I was a bit of a performer, very much so.
Yeah, a lot of lawyers are, I think, got some performance, something in them. I'm a lawyer by background, and I'm somebody, I don't like having my photo taken, but I enjoy the podcasting, an obscene amount, that's what I always say. And that's really surprised me, like how much I do enjoy it. So, yeah, I'm just curious to what's, how have you ended up like this? What was it about manufacturing in metal that grabbed you? I mean, what did you kind of go, oh, I need to be here?
Again, I mentioned earlier, it's like hearing the little wheels in your brain click. Within weeks, I understood it. And I understood it sort of blood to bone. I didn't have to sit there and do my working out. I could go from A to Z very quickly. And yeah, it just worked. The metal sector in the wider manufacturing sector in the UK and Europe, because we're all sort of in our little niches, they're quite small. They're, very gossipy. If somebody sneezes in Glasgow, somebody in Bristol will ring me up to tell me that someone in Glasgow's got a cold. But people stay in the sector. So you talk to people on a regular basis over decades. So you're actually creating lifetime friendships. You talk to people and you're not just going, yes, that'll be £300 a tonne or whatever the quote is. You're having a conversation about their life, about them as people, as individuals. And it's about that connection on an individual basis that works. And it will be the same in a lot of industries, I know. But the metal sector in particular train their salespeople not to sell, but to forge those relationships. So it's not about getting the order and you can give 3% off. It's about build the relationship so the customer doesn't ring anybody else. Because they're going to ring you on Monday and go, hi, how are you? Did you have a good weekend? And you'll go, yeah, I did. And they'll go, ask me about my weekend. Go on, ask me. Because they've got something they really want to tell you. And they want that 20-minute conversation. And it works both ways.
That's
you're going to really go above and beyond when they need you to.
If you're listening to this podcast, you're interested in hearing other people talk about the questions you want to ask about growing your business, and we have the space for you. We have something for you in that regard. Kelly?
Yeah, we've set up something called the Future Room that's filled with female founders who are asking the same questions as you. It's a safe, non-judgmental space where we can really just like talk about what's going on for us in good company with women who want to grow. So come along and join us. It's on LinkedIn. Full declaration. I'm like pulling everything from you here. I'm loving this. So as I said, 25, 30 years in direct sales, I've had the most amazing experiences, but I knew to build friendships and connections. I knew it, but why my career was so difficult was because I wasn't in industries that nurtured relationship. It was, you're supposed to be a closer or you're supposed to be a converter. And I had to leave, lots of different wonderful high profile jobs because it was so out of integrity. So it's taken me all the way to now, these last 5-10 years really, where I get to go, no, it's actually about, I've said it yesterday and the day before, the thing with me is care before conversion. So nobody ever wants to hire that. It just turns out that it actually works with our clients. I'm it's care, it's listening. Of course, you can't just be chatting all the time, but deep, authentic care. So my question is, we were asked for the first time in our previous interview, why have you called it Women Who Lead and Sell? Like she was so curious, and we were like, okay, well, we'll tell you. And she was like, yeah, but it's about serving, and it's about service, not selling. And I said, for me, a woman who stands up for something and advocates for something, a new opportunity or something in her family or community or in the business, she's activating an idea there. She's making an improvement. The thing is, though, lots and lots of women don't ever get the opportunity. Once they've created the idea or the innovation, they don't get a chance to monetize it or commercialize it. And so I wanted, at this stage of my career, with my message, to go out with something that said it's fine to be standing in. I've created something that makes a difference and it's a commercial value. And here's what I would like to receive for it. So I would just love, like I've shared that with you as if we were, meeting in a coffee shop. Like what have you got to say to women who are making, like, they're entrepreneurs. So they're not gone out in business. They're constantly innovating internally. And those ideas get embedded then in the organization. But maybe then they haven't had the recognition or they haven't understood the commercial value. Like, what would you say to them?
I think that's really important. And it's also a wider question as well about women's self-worth and charging for what that self-worth is, both either as an employee and going, I've come up with this idea within the business that is having a positive commercial aspect. Therefore, I would like a rise, please, to show that that's down to me. Or as individuals who maybe have got a side hustle going on and they're like, oh, people ask me if they can pick my brains and or if they can have a friends and family discount. If you're selling something, the last people who should be asking for a discount are your friends and family. They should be paying double the amount to support you and get you on your feet. Or even as someone who's setting up a new business, you need to be able to ask what you're worth. And it is so difficult. It's difficult for anyone, but from my view, it's particularly difficult for women because going back to that, put on the stage to perform as a little girl, as a young age, we are socially conditioned to help, to do that, to do this. And there's been a few good pieces of sort of advertising where you'll have the little girl help the mom lay the table for dinner and her brother's still playing on the PlayStation. And all these sort of things where it's socially conditioned that we should do it, give our expertise to help, to serve, rather than this is what we're worth. We have spent years being able to do this well. If you were to go somewhere else and purchase these skills, how much would it cost you? Now, that doesn't mean that you should never do nothing for free. You might have a community you're passionate about using your skills to work with that hasn't got the money to do it, that doesn't generate revenue. But those are skills then that you can hone and then use as transferable within your role. But it's really difficult to have that conversation. And it's not a hit somebody with the stick conversation. It's, I've made this difference. I would like to be rewarded for it. And then if you're not, you can decide if you're going to stay with the status quo. You might be really happy there, learn from your lesson and go, well, I'm not going to give anything that's outside of my specific job role away for free in future, but I'm not going anywhere because it suits me.
Yeah.
Or you might redo your CV, put that information in as a real life case study on what your skills have brought and look elsewhere. It's going to be down to the individual. But the bigger question for me is women undervaluing themselves of a lot of society's impacts and assumptions. And it goes with invisible labour. If there are 5 people in an office and 3 are men and 2 are women, you can guarantee the person running out to get the milk or get the birthday card to sign is one of the women in the office this.
Thank you for your answer and for really presence in the wider conversation with no make wrong. Like we know what we're dealing with. We're looking at the dynamics and the equity and all the rest of it. And you clearly are such an ambassador for that. I didn't realize actually until we started the podcast how much I still needed the message of it is okay to lead and sell, like being direct. And earlier again, we were speaking about, I don't want to feel like a bulldozer. That's the current thing I've got. I don't want to bulldoze in. I'm like, actually, when I observe powerful, direct, heart-centered women getting the job done, that turns me on. Like that makes me fire up. So it's interesting when I see it in other women, it's about them being strong and bold and courageous. But then for myself, it's like, oh, I don't want to be a bulldozer. And so many of the women that we have, we do a sounding board on a Thursday. And in that, the women, they're just like edgy. They're just edgy about even putting their ideas out. Yet they have amazing case studies and they're kind of, like this and not sure about charging and not sure about really like shouting from the rooftops about their ideas. So, just brilliant advice.
What would be your message to those people then, Kirsty? You were going to say something. Go ahead.
I was actually about to answer the question before you said it. Oh, yeah. My crystal ball is working today. I love it when that happens. It's about progress, not perfection. Put it out there and get it right later. Because if you wait until it's perfect, the people that you are thinking of putting your offer to or going to work with or having a conversation with, by the time you've stressed and obsessed and lost sleep over it and procrastinated, and you'll have done all of that out of fear, that's the bottom line. I've done that as well, and it's like, oh, I'm scared what happens if nobody likes it. I'm scared what if someone pushes back. Let them. And unless you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage because someone goes, I don't like that, just do it. Because if you don't, you're going to regret it. Some of my best engagement, whether it's in person, whether it's something I've put out on branding, whether it's an article I've written, whether it's a TV interview, the best engagement is when I've got something wrong, because it shows I'm human. And I can go, oops, didn't mean to say that, sorry. What I meant was this, or, tripping over a camera lead or something, walk into a seat. All those things show you're a real person, that you're not perfect. And perfection is the enemy of progress. The more you wait to get it right, the less you will actually do. And you're going to do things that don't work, that people don't engage with. That's okay. Learn from it and do something else next time.
Brilliant.
You've got to do it. And the reason you've got to do it is for yourself primarily, but also for those people that you can help. If you are looking at setting up a business or expanding your offers or making the company that you work from have a better reach through your voice, that's all going to go out to people you can help. Yes, they're going to pay you money, but it's a service. It's an exchange. You are giving them goods, ideas or services for their money. You're not just taking it and going, oh, thanks for that. It's an exchange. It's a relationship. And you can't build those relationships if you're not putting yourself out there.
Oh, so good.
You're not
so
visible.
Simple. That's all I keep hearing, these very systematic thinking, okay, tick, done.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I think you've said once, visibility isn't about ego, it's about impact.
That is a quote from the wonderful Justice Williams MBE.
Yes.
She said that at one of my conferences, and it's about the impact. And it's not always the impact, how it comes back on you. It's the impact on someone else. And it's like, creating ripples by throwing a stone into a pond. And it's, that little lily pad over there that the frog's sitting on and falls off, and they go, oh, I can swim because you threw the stone in the pond. It's how other people take it and run with it. And oftentimes you never know, but people will know you've had that impact on them. And that's the bit that's very hard to measure, but that's what's going to be your legacy. And it's amazing, those people's lives that we touch through social media, through a podcast, through an article in your trade magazine or journal or something like that. And it's only years later somebody will say, oh, I listened to the Women Who Lead and Sell podcast and I thought, oh, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to launch my new training course. And 2 years on, I'm making $3,000 a month from it as a side hustle. Thank you. I've paid the mortgage off.
Yeah.
You know, you never know how it's going to impact people.
It's very true. I want to ask you something about being a female leader in a male-orientated sector. What do you think you've brought to the party that has been acknowledged as that was a positive contribution, Kirsty, and that's a unique feminine-centered maybe approach or insight that you think you've brought, and people have said to you, yeah, that's we've never thought of that before. Have you got some examples of that?
As I've got older, I'm definitely the person in the room who goes, and it's incredibly rare occasions, incredibly rare nowadays, where somebody will make a slightly, what I call sexist comment, and I will call them out on it. That is very few and far between. I've worked with men for 36 years. I'm, you know, a pair of toe detectors, jeans, and swear like a trooper. I'm not. I can be feminine, but I'm equally at home as being a lot more, I suppose, the traditional man in a factory type stereotype. Mm-hmm. But that's because I've done it for so long. It's something that I don't push, and I think it's not fair to push that stereotype on men because they're much more likely to be talking about the family or the holiday or the new kitten they've got than they are to look like they've walked out of a factory in 1975 with all the sort of derogatory comments that perhaps would have been said by then. I think for me, one of the things that I worked really, really hard on was when I joined the industry and then when I got to a fairly senior leader position, in our sector, and I assume in manufacturing as a whole, there was a disconnect between people who worked in the factory and people who worked in the office, you know, blue collar versus white collar. And that really bugged me. And, you know, I spent a long time breaking down those barriers, and those barriers were on both sides. Negative thoughts on both sides. You know, nobody was innocent in this. And when you actually get rid of those barriers and people understand that whether they're running a machine or answering the phone, be it talking face-to-face to customers or loading a lorry, they are all working for the good of the company and of each other, and that they are colleagues, you have a much nicer place to work because you're getting rid of the them versus us. And it's been really good to see that coming through a lot more in the metal sector and manufacturing over the last 15 years or so. And I sort of did it because, you know, we're a small company. At the time, there was probably only 12 people here. You know, you can't have 2 people in the office, 10 in the factory, and nobody talking to each other because that's ridiculous. But that was something that I was really keen to dissolve. Yeah. And it's really good to see that is sort of a standard now. I'm sure there are lots of other people doing it at the same time as me. For it to take.
I have a point behind my question, actually. My point is this, that I always want to demonstrate economic value because money talks, right? So I find it fascinating, businesses that have quite female-centric principles behind them. That could be the people side, that could be the relationship building side, but demonstrating an actual economic case for diversity equals value. And I know this is a thing you're interested in. And so that was really what was behind my question was, you know, given the very male environment, what was it you brought? And I think you answered beautifully there. Thank you. Because I think it is important to make an economic argument for diversity in terms of performance. You know, when the rubber hits the road at the end of the day in any business, it's about your EBITDA, it's about your profit at the end of the day, isn't it? And particularly in the world that we're in at the moment, where DEI is being attacked as a waste of money and a waste of resources and time, it's more important than ever to demonstrate that economic value, whether you're a micro SME or you're a big conglomerate. That diversity needs to be there. Where have you found in your leadership necessary to step in and go, hang on a minute, this is important? Have you ever, where's that come in?
We sort of booked the trend for one reason and another. And we've pretty much predominantly always had a majority female commercial team. We just have. Where we've struggled is being able to recruit women in the factory. And as we've got bigger, as automation has progressed, that's become easier to do. But it's still about recruiting the right person who can work within that environment. And by environment, I mean, you know, being the first woman running a machine in a section. When I go and run a machine, that doesn't count, by the way, apparently. And we recruited a brilliant woman a few months ago, and she's doing really well. And the most practical way to show her impact is she runs one of our bright polishing machines. And bright polishing is a fairly mucky business. You've got liquid compound going onto a rotating, oscillating mop, onto the sheet of the material, and then it gets nice and shiny, gets coated, and off it goes to be made into something. So the polishing compound is really sticky. It doesn't matter on your extraction because it's so heavy that, you know, it's sort of like stick to the floor and stick to the bed of the machine rather than actually get sucked up. Trust me, we've tried. And she started going to her machine 15 minutes early and just tidying it. And within a week of her working here, our bright polishing section was unrecognisable because all the other people on the section went, she's making us look bad. So we sort of go over to the extent our materials handler came up and said to the commercial team, has anyone been over to Bright? Go and have a look. It's amazing. It's clean. And it's one of those things. And I'm using that to demonstrate not the fact that she's cleaning, but the fact that she has looked at a situation and solved it a different way to the other people on that section. And that's it. She's looked at it in one way. They've looked at it another way. She's come up with a different solution to them, which has had a positive impact. Now, you can put that same scenario, whether it's in sales, accountancy, R&D, whether you're in a lab, whether you're in retail, whether you're online, any other business scenario. If you have got diversity of thought, then you've got people looking at a problem or an opportunity from different angles, and you are much more likely to solve the problem or be successful with the opportunity if you have got more than one way of looking at that. And particularly in manufacturing, I'm sure every time you click on to an online, news provider, you'll see the productivity gap, skill shortage, blah, blah, blah. If you are only recruiting 50% of the population to fill your skills gap, you're missing out on the other 50% who can come in with that diversity of thought. And diversity of thought, of course, isn't just about gender. It's about neurodiverse people from different backgrounds. All of those will bring, if you think about Trivial Pursuit and you've got those little pies, everybody who's slightly different is a different triangle in the pie. And the more triangles of the pie you've got, the bigger pie.
Yeah.
Now I've made myself hungry.
Talking of pies. Kelly?
I'm just taking it in a minute. I'm good to just be sat hearing. I'm going to say exactly what I thought at the beginning, which was, where were you when I was, I mean, there's not much of an age difference, but I feel really young when I'm around really powerful women. And I think it just reminds me of the times where I just was looking for that guidance, that steadying of like the direction and the care. It's just so interesting. I'm having a lovely time. I don't know if I'm being a very good podcast host, but
No,
I'm
you're
just
being a
listening.
terrible one. Just kidding. No, I mean, it's interesting that it's the bit about visibility again, isn't it? It's about having that impact, but it's standing up and talking about this kind of stuff is important. But you've been a leader for a while. What can you tell us about your leadership that you've learned really on the job, basically? What leadership lessons are important for you?
You have to evolve. I've always done it like that. The way I learned to be a leader was from the people who were my managers and directors. And, they were managers and directors in the 70s. So management style was pretty much scream at you. That was not unusual in the 80s and 90s. And then as sort of my generation started to take on a leadership role, we defaulted to that. And then we were like, well, hang on a minute. I didn't like people talking to me that way. So why am I talking to people that way? And then you go through a bit of going too far the one way, and then you have your default because it's sort of hardwired into you because, you learned it. And then you've got to find your own balance. And what you'll find is sort of people sort of been doing it 35 years, sort of like me. We're not as hard ass as our managers were. And I'm sure that Gen Z coming into leadership roles now, they're going to be even more empathetic than people in my generation are, because they'll be doing exactly the same thing and looking at people like me and going, well, I don't like the way they do that, so I'm going to try and do that instead. And that's the whole point about the human race, even in business, is that we evolve. And I think it's really important to do that. And I think particularly after COVID, I think a lot of people really started to look at their work-life balance and how they could achieve that in a better way for the life part. I don't think that it's a badge of honour the way it once was. In fact, it's not, and it should never be a badge of honour for someone to go, oh, I've worked 60 hours this week. Yay. Because we need to leave that in the past. Yes, there'll be deadlines. Yes, there'll be problems. Yes, you've got to put the time in on occasion, but it shouldn't be doing it for the sake of doing it. And I think if you can look at how you are perceived if you're in a leadership role, and make sure that you're still evolving, then you're never going to get it right 100% of the time, but at least you're trying. And actually getting it wrong and going, look, I got that wrong, is one of the best learning curves you can do.
We have a consultancy business and a whole ecosystem we're putting together, Kirsty, under the brand of Women Who Lead and Sell. And one of the aspects of that is creating a community of like-minded female founders who are looking for answers, who've probably got the answers in them, but sometimes you've got to be in discussion with other like-minded people to go, oh yeah, I know the answer to that. That's it. You've drawn it out of me. Now, you've built a community around women with metal. What would you be advising us in terms of having set up that and been successful? What would you be saying to us and coaching us about, okay, here's what you need to bear in mind when you're building a community which has got a particular mission, commercial mission?
The first thing I would say is it's not about you, it's about them. It's about what they want to get out of it. And It's about being able to judge the engagement you're getting. Some people will engage minimally because they want to be a part, but they're really busy and they pretty much know their own mind, and they'll come to something once every 3 months and they're fine with that. And then it's the other people who don't really engage but want to engage and are nervous about engaging and are nervous about being involved and showing up. And even if you're having, an online meeting, taking mute off or putting the camera on and going, hello, my name's Aliya and I used to be a lawyer, even, that they're too nervous about doing that. And it's being able to give the people who are nervous and unsure but want to engage the confidence and the resources to be able to, we call it with Women with Metal, step off the curb first. So I stepped off the curb first and crossed the road. And then everyone tootled along and they were like, oh, I can cross there. She has, I can cross there. And they did it. And it's just being able to make sure you're listening to the people that you're engaging with, not listening necessarily to what they say, although obviously do that, but listening to what they're not saying. That is quite often where you can understand what they're feeling, but they're not actually communicating to you.
Rules around business, there are often very, perceived rules and myths and things like that about business. Would you say there's any that you've kind of gone, no, I'm not doing that? Like, that doesn't work. No, enough of that. What would you say around that?
Quite a few have changed over the years. I mean, particularly coming from a legal profession, you may have, in your early career, had rules on what you could and couldn't wear. You wore skirt suits, you didn't wear trousers. And that was pretty much prescribed, when I joined the industry. And it was like, I'm in a factory. Why am I wearing a skirt? I think one of the things for me that has really changed in business over the years is allowing people to show their individuality. So you can probably might be able to see I've got a half sleeve tattoo. I had a shoulder tattoo when I was about 19. And I wouldn't have worn a vest top, even if it was 34 degrees, for it to be seen. And then I think I had that covered up just before COVID. And then after COVID progressed to a half sleeve because I enjoy it. And I like showing my individuality that way. I remember interviewing people in the 90s and being told that we can't employ them, they've got a tattoo. Okay. Or they've got more than, one hole in each ear pierced, or they've got their nose pierced. I have a friend who was a lawyer. He's not anymore. He's gone into communications, and he's got full sleeves and full legs tattooed. And he would have to wear a long sleeve shirt if it was 40 degrees because he could not show his tattoos at work, even if he wasn't client facing. And that was probably only about 15 years ago. So, I dye my hair weird colours, normally red, but I have been known to do weirder colours. I wander around work now in jeans and Ugg boots if it's cold. I don't expect the team in the office to wear suits. Wear what you're comfortable in. I'm not paying for you to sit at the desk in a suit. I'm paying you to do the job, to do it well, to enjoy doing it, and to progress in your career. If you are happy doing that in jeans and trainers and a t-shirt, then I'm happy for you to do that. So I think allowing that individuality to come through, what you're actually doing is you're letting people discover how good they can be if they're doing it themselves. Because otherwise, what you're ending up with are people with a script. And no disrespect here to people in a call centre, because it's a horrible job and I would not want to do it. You're sort of making loads of outbound calls and everyone's hanging up on you. But you've got to get the hook, get through the words, try and keep them on the phone. And it's about number, call, until hopefully, you land a fish. And not being able to have that individuality in what you do, talking to people or how you dress is going to stifle people's own growth and their enjoyment. And people who enjoy their job are better employees, better team members, better colleagues. So why wouldn't you want them to show up being their best self, even if that is with blue hair, tattoos, and their nose pierced?
And that does play into the whole responsibility as a leader to take care of your team from a mental health point of view. When people pretend to be something they're not, it really does take a toll. I do very much welcome that new environment of having come from a very strict legal background myself. And I know exactly what you're saying about the wearing a particular outfit and not being able to truly, looking very differently. If I went in on a Friday night into the office wearing my Friday night outfit, people would be like, whoa, because I looked very different in my civvies.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that's now blurred. Although I do sometimes go into the city in London and go, God, people are in the city and they're wearing jeans. That would never happen in my day. So I sometimes fall into that trap of why aren't they all tidy and where everyone's wearing trainers. Yeah,
It's so true. I was at a dinner last week with a load of people from our industry, from the aluminium industry, at the House of Lords, and I wore trainers.
rebel.
I know.
I
It
love
was
that
hard.
I love that you pointed out. I mean, there's such a thread of the like acceptance and that we are all individuals. But your link to people being like feeling comfortable and then being their best selves, or doing their best in their career. I really appreciate you pointing that out. It says a lot about like your thinking on it. It linked me to. I'm thinking about clients as you're speaking, and I would love to know what you've got to say about this, Kirsty. Is often when I'm doing it's a real mix of like leadership coaching or a founder doer going to a founder leader, right? In that lower end scale up stage. So last week I had a conversation with the founder because she was struggling with like, I need to motivate them more. I feel like I'm just constantly like checking on things. It was a typical leadership thing. And she's only just getting in the realm of like what her vision is. And I said to her, you are not responsible for motivating them. And she was really shocked. And she's like, how come? I'm like, you're not responsible for motivating someone. And we went into I said, let's look at what you are actually responsible for. So we talked about the technical parts of the role and all the things like the good environment and the equipment, all that stuff. So I said, tell me then why I would say to you that you're not responsible to motivate them. And she's like, oh, I kind of get it. Like, I don't need to like get them G'd up for their job. I don't need to get them feeling good. Like we really just talked about her energy being drained by her thinking it was her job to like G everyone up. So what would you say to her? Because that's a common thing for our founders, that they have all these hats. They're doing the delivery, they're doing the pitching, they're looking after the team, but they get drained by lots of the people stuff. But when they started out, they really loved the people stuff.
I'd say, first of all, recognise you are not on your own when you're in that situation. It's not a fault. It's not a problem with you. Everybody has gone or is going through that to some extent. So it's an aspect of the system and how we're taught to sort of build businesses by copying off other businesses that are successful and so on. We look at this structure and we go, well, that's how everyone's done it, so I must do it the same. What we're not seeing when we look at those structures is that the face of the CEO, let's use the famous example, Richard Branson, he's not worrying about his teams because he's got different managing directors, HR directors, employee wellbeing directors for each brand or branch. So he's the face of the brand, and then he's got all the people doing the work. Now, when you're a smaller business, you're not only the face, you're all those other roles as well. But what you need to remember is, as well as being your colleagues and team members, those people are your employees. And if they are the right person in the right role, they should be coming to you with ideas. They should be coming to you and going, right, I've worked on this project for customer A. I think it's really good, but I think we can make it better by doing this next. So can we look at that? I've ran some ideas on it. And they should be excited about coming in and doing their job to the best of their ability. Yes, there'll be days where, it's horrible and everyone just goes, we've all been yelled at. We cock some up for the client. They're not happy. We're putting it right. But there should always be something that you want to do to improve for yourself and the business. And even if you're the type of person that you're really happy in the role that you're in, you don't want to take work home in your head, you just want to come in, do your job and go away, you're still going to come in and do your best. Now, it's not about motivating them, it's about noticing that effort and making sure they know that you can see them and saying thank you. Say, you know what, you went above and beyond on Thursday. I really noticed that you took your break late to get, in our case, that pack ready for that wagon that had come in early. And that meant you didn't have your break with your mate who you have morning break with every day and you had it on your own. But I really appreciate you taking the initiative to do that. I see you doing your best. And yes, reward can come in many forms, whether it's monetary, whether it's bacon sandwiches, whether it's cakes, whether it's a buffet, whether it's tickets to the theatre, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be half your annual profits. It can be something that's a gesture, but it's making sure that you see those people and making sure that you say thank you.
That's brilliant. That's so practical. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, that would be really helpful for a lot of our listeners.
We ask all of our guests the same question, Kirsty, which is this. If you could write on a Post-it a message to a female founder, a bit of advice from what you've learned, what would it be and why?
Everything you want is on the other side of fear. I launched something at the beginning of June. Well, no, I didn't. I launched it in the middle of June. It was meant to be the beginning of June. And I didn't press go. I didn't do it. I was like, oh, the tech's not quite right. The tech was right. I was just using it as an excuse. But everything that we want, everything we dream of achieving, of being, in how we want to show up to the world, there is that deep ravine with the rickety drawbridge across, think Indiana Jones, and we need to cross that, and that ravine is fear. And every time we don't take the steps, we're not moving forwards. So you have to take the steps. You have to go across. And if you think of it, I suppose, a bit like a simulation or a computer game, so you can reset, you get lots of lives. You might run all the way across, the board might break and you might plummet to the bottom. But you reset and you can go back to the beginning and maybe try it in a bit more of a controlled way. Or maybe try walking sideways or crawling or sitting down and inching your way across. There are lots of ways to cross that ravine. You can ask someone to hold your hand and help you across. You can have someone at the other side cheering for you to make it across. But the only way you are going to get to where you want to be is to face the fear and do it anyway, to paraphrase somebody else. The only person you're doing a disservice to for not taking that step is yourself.
Yeah, beautiful.
I love that. Bum shuffling across the ravine.
Bum shuffling across the ravine.
You would definitely have to be over the other side. Come on, let's go.
You can
That's
do
it.
it.
Come on, you can do it. It's you can even put a parachute on, so
when you get to the other side and then you're like, and then you can jump off. Isn't it so interesting how I just find I think it's like the granular or the feeling of when a woman steps out from their own experience, like how it's been and what to do. Like I could literally, I was going bum shuffling across the ravine. I'm like, okay, yes, when I don't want to press that tomorrow, which is exactly it, right? All the EBGBs come up. They all sound really, rational, and they're not. It's just like, just do it.
You feel like it's a lonely experience until you figure out that 99%
all of us are like,
been there at one point.
So good.
We do. And I think, again, it's part of the society that we've grown up in, which is, smile, you've got it, don't cause a fuss, don't cause a drama, oh, you're being emotional, oh, you're being dramatic, and just do your full-time job and then go home and do another full-time job, and carrying all that emotional labour. And I just think it's great that the younger generations coming through now are just saying to hell with this, in a lot of ways. I mean, it's going to take probably a few more generations, but it's starting.
Yeah, it's very true. I'm very hopeful of what they're bringing in terms of value and purpose and mission.
I can't wait
to see what Gen Z do.
Let me just check. Are we finishing? Can I ask one more question? Just one quick question. What's ahead? It's like, I want to know, is there like a long-term project you're working on, or the thing that you're going to launch? Like, what's ahead for you? What's across the ravine? Tell us.
So I've just launched sort of a soft launch of an initiative called the Confidence Collective, which is going to turn into some training courses, some webinars on how to build your business confidence. I'll be breaking it down into whether it's speaking, whether it's networking for the first time, how to create your memorable story in sort of like short, medium and long. Lots and lots of different ways. Confidence is my superpower, and I'm excited to find out what yours is.
Oh, yes. Just so glad. Oh, Ryan's making smoky looking faces.
I'm glad you
I
asked
knew
that
that
last
other question. I've been very quiet for a while. So I'm so happy. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.